Aina giggled nonstop while standing by the pool. Wang Jung leapt out from the water and dragged Aina down. They were just about to whisper something to each other when Wei Yin popped back out. Let's go play at the high diving pool. Wang Jung, you're so good at jumping that you can even jump from buildings, so you'll be even better at jumping into the water. Wang Jung was stunned for a second. Your Royal Highness Princess, I have no wish to jump from buildings, nor do I want to jump into the waters. I just want the two of us to spend some time alone. But Lin Weiyan didn't allow for anything to be said and dragged the two of them along. Aina clearly doted on this sister very, very much. Even though she came from the royal family, she didn't have many siblings of her own, and Aslan held kinship in high regards. Sunshine and beauties. This was definitely one of his happiest days. If Her Royal Highness Weiyan could be a tad more sensitive, it'd have been even better. Despite this, Wang Jung felt as if he had been given a new lease of life. Aina was really here. After a whole day of fun, at night, Weiyan wanted to bunk with Aina, ruining Wang Jung's secret plans. He really wanted to threaten little Weiyan, but after weighing the pros and cons, he figured it was great that she hadn't tried to blackmail him, so he decided to give up. Lying on his bed, enjoying the breeze and looking at the night sky, Wang Jung felt extra peaceful. He could hear giggling sounds in the distance. He wondered what Aina and Weiyan were talking about, though he knew it was definitely something related to him. When he closed his eyes, his mind would be filled with Aina's graceful figure and beauty. How could he sleep? Wang Jung tossed and turned. He was a passionate young man and this was tormenting him. He didn't feel it normally, but this was exceptionally hard to bear, especially when rich man Su from time to time had bragged about these things to him. Wang Jung was an ordinary man too. The situation between them was like dried wood in a blazing fire. But no matter how hot things were between them, there was no use with a wall in between. After much tossing and turning, Wang Jung finally felt sleepy when a black face appeared right in front of him. So huge, Wang Jung jumped almost instantly. Damn, it was that black charcoal head robot that was tangled up in a fight with Bonehead. How did he come out? There wasn't even a sound. Where was Bonehead? Was he killed? But no matter what, Bonehead seemed like a more advanced robot. The robot stared blankly at Wang Jung. It looked silly. Why do you guys always appear in such a way? Could you say something before you come out next time? Said Wang Jung. The other party didn't seem to have any ill intent, and they tried calling out for Bonehead. There was no response. No way, could he really have been done for? Yes, Master. I am Charcoal, not Black Charcoal Head, Charcoal said in all seriousness. Black Charcoal Head, where's Bonehead? What happened? Where did you come from? I don't think I know you. You're my second master. I've been asked by my first master to wait for you. Wang Jung was between laughter and tears. When had he become so popular? Where is Bonehead? He is doing fine. After our discussion, he chose to enter his sleep mode. He has decided not to interfere temporarily. His training does not suit your current physical state and has caused some deviation that will affect you in the future. It needs adjustments, Charcoal said expressionlessly. Rolling about in an embrace was the way robots communicated? Who was your first master? How good was he? Seems cocky. And what do you people do exactly? You appear as you wish and never ask if I'm willing to have you. My first master's name is Wang Dong. Cocky, what does that mean? Wang Jung and Charcoal stared at each other. Big Dummy glaring at Little Dummy. What level of intelligence was this? The world was becoming a weird place. Ahem. Bonehead is my friend. Can you ask him to come out? Asked Wang Jung. Charcoal shook his head. Master will automatically wake up when your body is able to take it. Otherwise, when the law of the cosmos finds out about you, you will either face serious problems or even be obliterated by the law. Wang Jung rolled his eyes and looked up at the ceiling. Damn. Trying to use the laws to frighten him? Did it think he was an idiot? He was old merchant's disciple, a master of physics. Charcoal Head, let's strike a deal. You let Bonehead out, then we discuss the problem about the law of the cosmos. I'm actually really great. The laws of the cosmos won't be able to do anything to me. Wang Jung felt as if this black Charcoal Head had extremely low intelligence and tried tricking it first. Master, I am Charcoal, not Charcoal Head. The laws of the cosmos almost wiped out all of humanity last time. Humanity was only spared after damage was done to a few centuries worth of technology. Given your current abilities, you are not strong enough to break the laws. To think a squarish, expressionless robot was actually pretty stubborn. Hey, how far away am I from achieving the point where I can break these laws and become almighty? Wang Zheng was very confident of himself and he felt that he was not too far off from that point. You'll be about there when you are able to move freely between parallel planes of space. Charcoal said seriously. Wang Zheng gaped. Move freely within the planes of space? You think your boss here is a novelist? Is there no other way? No, if you don't, it will bring great calamity, Charcoal said earnestly. Furthermore, your moves require minor adjustments. The practice of the 5 elements, earth, ocean, fire, wind, and space provides infinite power. However, you would only go down the path of destruction against the current laws of the cosmos if you were to clash against them. You need to turn them into metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, the cycle of 5 phases. Wang Zheng was stunned. What cycle? What elements? Meeting Bonehead was already weird. Now someone even weirder had come along, and he was talking as if he was really great. His primordial regression technique was working fine. Changing what he knew would make him go crazy. Can we do it another way? Wang Zheng asked weakly. When it came to communicating with non-living things like these, there often wasn't any room for discussion anyway. Surprisingly, Charcoal nodded. You can choose not to, but you will have to be stripped of all your progress and start all over again. Wang Zheng stared blankly. Do what you deem fit. Elder brother here was unperturbed at Charcoal's words. Well, can we do that another time? Now. Wang Zheng had not finished his sentence when his vision went dark. Damn, why were these robots always so unreasonable? Can't he just let elder brother here finish? The entire adjustment process was a forced adjustment procedure to change the primordial regression technique's path and flow. As the adjustment occurred, the differences were explained in a voice which was gentle yet full of vigor. Wang Zheng knew it was Wang Dong's voice by instinct. Just who was he really? What level did he attain? He should have become dust long before now. How was he still helping him? The earth, ocean, fire, wind, and space was a powerful way of training that drastically improved strength. However, in every universe, or rather, every parallel space, there was a fixed, stable set of laws. Different spaces had different laws, and once a force broke a law, the laws of the cosmos would resist, just like how a body's antibodies would react to a foreign threat. In this case, either the force that had broken the laws got destroyed, or the universe would go into chaos. It could affect as much as the entirety of space, or as little as a planet. For instance, earthquakes and tsunamis were ways which planets healed. It was the same for the universe, but in a way which humans still could not understand. The cycle of the 5 elements could disguise this force, and even if someday the force became overpowering, it would still have a certain chance of getting past the laws. This was not a problem that could be tackled head-on. There was no winning or losing, and it had to be transcended or it would bring about catastrophe. The other party seemed to have plenty to share, but by the time Wang Zheng woke up, he appeared to have retained only a bit. Wang Zheng checked his physical condition. He hadn't lost his chastity, nor did any of his limbs go missing. It was just that the primordial regression technique. Wang Zheng was stumped. The primordial regression technique might have still been the primordial regression technique, but it had taken on a weird form. It resisted itself and yet connected with itself. It couldn't do with less, but more was not good either. It could be very strong, but it could also be reduced to null. What an odd state. Wang Zheng went into meditation in an attempt to get used to this weird state he was in. The side effects were yet to be discovered. In the Rubik's Cube space, Charcoal Head and Bonehead sat across each other, staring down. Although Wang Zheng's A-registered name had the word Zheng, which meant to fight, when faced with such a scene, he knew that there was no use complaining. The 2 robots represented 2 different forces and did whatever they liked. As long as they didn't use his body for experiments all the time, he was all right with it. He was still very young, very naive, and a virgin. Even though Wang Zheng was always calm and always unafraid of the heavens and the earth, he felt slightly fearful this time. He now had something to care for, desires, and things he wanted to do. As for principles, arguments, responsibilities and so on, he didn't mind doing things within his capabilities. However, it'd be better not to expect too much out of him, for he only wanted to live happily. It would be best if those two could remain like that forever and not harass him anymore. Looking the two of them, it looked as if they were quite passionate. Wang Zheng's mind and soul exited the Rubik's Cube. The world around him had become slightly different. It was not the feeling of clarity after waking up from a slumber. He couldn't pin down what was different, but some things had definitely undergone some changes unknowingly. Get up, Wang Zheng. The sun's shining on your ass. A loud, rapturous knocking sound came from the door, totally unladylike. Wang Zheng patted his head and put all those weird things to the back of his mind. Your Highness, could you behave a little more ladylike? Little Zhengza, stop dilly-dallying. Your sister, me, has cooked personally. If you don't come out now, I'll eat all of it. Wei Yan slammed open the doors and popped her head in. Little Zhengza. Why did it sound like some ancient occupation that was lost on Earth a long, long time ago? Wang Zheng shivered. Wei Yan, how did you open the door? Are you stupid? I used a key. Get up, quickly. What an average figure, nothing to see. He was not sure when the princess Her Royal Highness had begun to attack him for her own enjoyment. The way she looked at him was as though he was a furry soft toy. Even though it was just a meal, Aina and Wang Zheng would still cast amorous glances at each other. Wei Yan, however, talked non-stop about her own stories and her latest single. The thing is, Wang Zheng had been busy training and didn't have time to listen to songs. This displeased Her Royal Highness Wei Yan. Wang Zheng had neglected the existence of a prominent figure like her, so she wanted to ruin things. She wanted to be the bad guy. Wang Zheng and Aina quickly hoaxed this little princess. It only ended when Wang Zheng promised to buy a present for Wei Yan as an apology. Student Wang was in bliss. Princess Aina accompanied him for meals while Princess Wei Yan sang her new single. He got to enjoy all this alone. It was too much. Compared to this, the other kids who were in training were not so fortunate, although most of them believed that Wang Zheng was definitely depressed and pitiful. Going through such significant ups and downs would be a huge blow to anybody. Moreover, Wang Zheng was a small character. It was surely very painful for him to suddenly fall off. Because of that, Otto's was in a particularly good mood and was training extra hard. Furthermore, they were on the moon's turf, so he acted as if they were invincible. If they knew about the life Wang Zheng was living, they'd all probably go berserk. Wang Zheng was a little worried about the training situation, but Wei Yan had dispelled his worries. It had all been arranged. Her reputation was credible enough for 3 days of rest. Plus, if he failed after being away for so little time, his capabilities would be way too weak. When he heard Wei Yan say that, Wang Zheng didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. After putting on their disguises, the three of them spent the entire day touring Paradise Island. More accurately, the three of them with Angela hiding in the shadows. Wang Zheng gave Lin Wei Yan a soft rabbit toy. It had an exceptionally long body, like a cylinder. It could function as a pillow. What do you girls think this looks like? Wang Zheng suddenly asked, giggling. A cute rabbit, answered Lin Wei Yan, happily hugging the huge rabbit. It's not meant to be hugged this way. Here, look. Wang Zheng flipped the rabbit over and made a heroic pose. See, doesn't this guy look like the wall-hitting rabbit? Every time I see its head, I want to bang it against the wall. Wei Yan snatched the toy back. HMPH. Bad person. Don't you dare bully my rabbit. Wang Zheng and Aina held hands, fingers interlocked. This was the only way to reflect the emotions they'd been trying hard to suppress. The three of them spent the whole day sightseeing on Paradise Island. It wasn't peak season on Paradise Island, but it was indeed one of the most well-known places of interest in the solar system. It was nothing to Aina and Lin Wei Yan. It was, at best, a different style in a foreign land. But the main point of their trip wasn't the scenery, it was the company. Angela brought along some men and tried to minimize the distractions for the three of them. Inside, she felt speechless at how confident this guy was. She was well aware of how promising, young Aslan men got tongue-tied in front of these two princesses. Yet this guy dared to tease the princesses. Was this one of the benefits of Earthlings' overconfidence? Time passed quickly when they were having fun. After Wei pestered him too, Wang Jung could only return to his own room. He didn't get to spend time alone with Aina. Moreover, he could sense the distance and coldness deep down in Angela's eyes. It was clear she didn't want him to affect the two princesses. Wang Jung had not actually asked for anything. This relationship itself was bliss. It was not that Wang Jung was enlightened or anything, but compared to himself, he hoped more for Aina to be happy. When alone, Wang Jung worked on the revised primordial regression technique. He was no longer considered a newbie, and even though it was a little awkward at first, after a full day, he realized that it was indeed different from the original one. As it turned out, even though operating the primordial regression technique brought about strength, it also gave the urge to act out in violence. The new primordial regression technique felt much better. It seemed like beauty was indeed skin deep. The same went for robots. It looked like the terrifying student skeleton had been convinced by Black Charcoal Head. There were two mysterious characters involved in this, Li Feng and Wang Dong. If they had such awesome pets, no matter who these two people were, they must have been extremely powerful. But it appeared that both of them saw something in him, or shared some kind of fate with him. Who was the better of the two? Wang Jung was getting ready to go to bed at the end of the cyclic day when he heard soft footsteps. He was stunned for a short moment, and then, immediately, jumped out of the bed. He opened the doors and, with one hand, swooped the gentle figure standing in the doorway into his arms. He closed the doors and then the two of them looked into each other's eyes. Wang Jung carried Aina in his arms. That bit of weight was nothing to Wang Jung. A young couple madly in love. The two of them could only wish to spend every single second of their days together, be it the non-human Wang Jung or Her Royal Highness. The two of them were just ordinary people in this aspect. It was obvious that Wang Jung was not satisfied with having someone between them. Before long, his tongue was pressed against Aina's pearly white teeth. Her sweet little tongue had tried to avoid it but was eventually swept up and intertwined with his. While Wang Jung thoroughly enjoyed the princess's sweetness, his big, rough hands kept themselves busy too. They were already up inside Aina's clothes. As soft as silk and smoother than milk. It was as if Aina's body had been drained of all energy and allowed Wang Jung to do anything he wanted. Wang Jung felt as if he was going to burst. Aina had obviously made a decision, and Wang Jung really could not take it anymore. He put Aina on the bed. He was going to enjoy the world's most beautiful princess and make her his woman. Aina bit her lips, evidently nervous. This, for her, was clearly a very significant event. The Princess of Aslan could not lose her chastity, or it would be the ugliest scandal for the royal family. It was Aslan's traditions and pride, and also a way in which Aina wanted to make the royal family acknowledge it. Even if it was discovered, it would be too late to stop them. Of course, it was most important that Aina was willing to do this. Looking at the angelic, naked body, Wang Jung burned with desire while his heart was moved. He gently held those soft, vulnerable, silky breasts, and lightly pressed on the little red dots. Aina trembled. Her snow-white skin glowed with a layer of light pink. Wang Jung didn't want to rush into it. He wanted to have Aina completely. His hands continued downwards, and Aina quickly stopped them. It was an instinctive reaction. Wang Jung slowly removed Aina's hands. Aina kept her eyes shut tightly. Wang Jung suddenly stopped and gently kissed Aina on her lips and cheeks. "My princess, your royal highness, please open your eyes." Aina bit her lips and asked weakly, "Can I keep them closed?" "Of course not." Aina slowly opened her eyes. Those brilliant eyes were so beautiful under the moonlight. Wang Jung thanked the heavens in his heart. This was the greatest gift in his life. All right, that's it. Even if the sky collapsed, it was something to worry about in the future. Just as Wang Jung was about to go for it, there was a knock on the door. "Wang Jung, sister is missing. Can you look for her with me? I can't fall asleep alone." Wang Jung and Aina looked at each other. This was the universe's single greatest light bulb. The two of them hurriedly put on their clothes, and in the process, crashed into each other by accident. They couldn't help but giggle. "I don't know. I waited for her to fall asleep before coming out. It's your fault," Aina said softly. Wang Jung put his clothes on faster and gave Aina a hand. He kissed Aina and said, "My princess Xiao Shi is the best." How could he not know that Aina had put in a lot of effort in coming to see him? Even if Aina hadn't come to see him, he wouldn't blame her. There were many things in this world that didn't have an ending. The door opened. Wei-Yan, carrying her wall-crashing rabbit, looked at the two of them sleepily. Ah, sister, why are you here? Are you secretly playing games? Wei-Yan, come in. Aina pulled Lin Wei-Yan into the room and closed the door. Actually, I came to check on a secret. Aina was suddenly hit by an idea. Secret? I love secrets. Upon hearing that there was something fun, Wei-Yan's interest was piqued and she forgot about what she wanted to ask before. Do you want to know who Skeleton is? Aina said. Skeleton? What skeleton? Is it the one who's really good? Lin Wei-Yan got excited. Anything that gave her musical inspiration also left a lasting impression on her. Aina glanced at Wang Zheng, and Wang Zheng nodded. It wasn't a big deal anyway. He seems far in the horizon, but he's actually right in front of you, Aina said, smiling. No need to admire. I'm just a legend, Wang Zheng bragged. Lin Wei-Yan jumped right up. Thankfully, Aina had caught her in her arms. The scene of two beauties embracing each other made Wang Zheng understand and not have contempt for those brothers who'd have nosebleeds. It was indeed brutal. Oh, that's a secret. I know. I won't tell anybody. Even Angela said you were awesome. The beautiful night had been callously ruined and put to an end by the evil Princess Wei-Yan. Aina and Wei-Yan slept on the bed, while Wang Zheng and the rabbit slept on the couch. Man and rabbit were staring down at each other. This is tortuous. He wanted to hit his head against a wall too. What did it feel like, sleeping with two beauties, or rather, a big beauty and a big beauty to be, in a room? Student Wang knew best. It was pretty much capital punishment. But Student Wang was very strong-willed, so he managed to get some sleep. As for how many sheep he had counted, he wasn't too sure. Now that she knew Wang Zheng's true identity, Wei-Yan pestered Wang Zheng to battle so that she could see it with her own eyes. Solon would be in tears from gratefulness if he heard it. Right now, CT's Earth region was on the edge of a volcanic eruption. Solon held his temper well. He formed a team. No matter what, the other party was Manalasuo, the one true strong and capable country. They had initiated a match with Earth, and it was a pretty big deal. So when the announcement was made, they received responses from countless players. Also, more than 9 million had tuned into the live broadcast. This was rather significant, and it could only go to show that the Earth region was way too active. Some failures were not at all terrifying. As long as you displayed and exhibited your level, it could be accepted. But it was too bad you wouldn't always meet good opponents. This group of people was way too arrogant. They came from a truly strong country, one that not even Locke could compare to. Arrogance was deeply rooted within their bones. Perhaps it was because they were used to being high and above that they would not and could not stand in the shoes of Earth. They beat people into pulps and used uncouth language after. It was evident that they had come for Aslan. Earth was just a victim. The political direction had determined the relations between the people of the two countries. Forget about 3 rounds of group battles. A professional player from Manalasuo named Mechanic had thrashed Earth's professional players. His skills were the same as Skeleton's. He had put on all sorts of shows, showing off at the expense of others. Mechanic used an iconic mech from Manalasuo named the Blade Demon. It was also a mech used by the Manalasuo Federal Army and was to be used against Aslan, of course. Even Aina and Wei-Yan had heard of him. The battles between the two huge CT regions of Aslan and Manalasuo were most frequent. The military standoff ending didn't mean they didn't want to determine who was better. Mechanic was one of the more extreme players among the royal players of Manalasuo. He frequently battled Aslan and had a foul mouth. But he was undeniably strong and capable, and others were often violently tortured by him. These fights were all broadcasted live on Manalasuo, so he was extremely popular there. Of course, Aina and Wei-Yan had only heard of him. They never paid extra attention to him, they only knew he was powerful. Wang Zheng watched his battle recordings. The blades on a mech like the Blade Demon were interesting. Manalasuo called them the 100 refined blades. It was different from the usual titanium blades and knives. Manalasuo believed that it was more effective than lasers when it came to combat. Wang Jun did not know much about the 100 refined blade even though there were many opinions on it. Wang Jun felt that this was similar to the horse-chopping sword mentioned by Bonehead as they both delivered powerful blows. The 100 refined blade also required some of Manalasuo's unique designs in it to bring out its full effect. The instantaneous high-speed magnetic propulsion of the mech allowed the movement of the mech to be quick and unpredictable while giving it opportunities to get the most out of the weapon. The most recent battle was between Prince and Mechanic. The wind god used by Prince was the most famous mech on Earth at the moment. It was able to feature on the international stage even though it was not being mass-produced. The Blade Demon was Manalasuo's signature mech and was highly agile. Each mech had their own strengths, but people would still enjoy finding out which mech was superior. The mecha would not move on their own in a direct comparison of statistics, but in CT, there was a pilot controlling the mecha, allowing one to see the mecha's true potential. Prince used the wind god. It was as though the stakes involved included his entire savings, and this resulted in a significant increase in the skill level of the battle. However, the battle still ended up with a slightly miserable result. The Blade Demon moved about rapidly at a dazzling pace and was always a beat faster than Prince. The mech flashed before Prince and had even made some slashes at him, missing intentionally, with his blade. His actions came off as half-hearted, playful even. Prince was calm. Based on his experience, he understood that he stood a chance when his opponent was careless and made a mistake. In a battle, humiliation was worse and more feared than failure. However, this was what Prince was going through. If one was strong, he could battle with exquisite techniques that would cause the opponent to surrender. However, what Mechanic wanted was not for Prince to surrender but for the people of Earth to know of his abilities. Were the people on Earth even humans and not pigs? What kind of outdated place was Earth anyway? The wind god sent out its magnetic source while the Blade Demon's slick, wind-like movements allowed it to intentionally move ahead of Prince to attack him with blade after blade. Wherever Prince moved to, the Blade Demon was already there. It seemed as if Prince was digging his own grave. There was a clear disparity in ability. Prince gave it everything he had. As long as the opponent did not kill him, he would not surrender. Although there was a limit to his abilities, he fought the battle with all his might. Multiple tricks had exhausted Prince's energy shield. His body and spirit were completely numb and his actions thereafter changed. Moving about in the presence of a series of wind-like movements caused Prince to lose his center of gravity. He tripped on himself and the wind god fell abruptly. Mechanic coolly kept his blades and placed it onto his shoulders. He then proceeded to create a public provocation. Aside from this trash, are there no other proper opponents for me to take on Earth? It is like a child's playground in here. Aina and Lin Weiyan were upset by this scene. This guy is so irritating, said Weiyan angrily. Considering that she was raised in a princess-like environment, her words indicated how poor her impression of Mechanic was. What Wang Jun saw was not failure but the anger and helplessness Prince must have been feeling. They were once foes and even teammates, so he knew that Prince was a serious person who loved court. Prince treated it as his full-time career. And even though he was not a real soldier and would not have a soldier's honor, he hoped to leave his mark on the CT world. He worked extremely hard for this simple objective. Sometimes, this kind of a person was not afraid of failure but the destruction of his dignity. It was not a simple matter of a competition that was lost, but a person whose dreams had been crushed. Solon was also frustrated as the group of Manalasuo people still refused to leave. They were already roaming wildly on Earth for a long time with Mechanic as their leader. They organized public challenges in different areas on Earth and had a win rate of at least 90%. Mechanic was close to tasting a perfect win rate with multiple rampages. For a mech like the Blade Demon to fall into his hands was incomprehensible. A mech was a pilot's second life. A player like Mechanic was very special as he was well versed in the usage of blades. As long as he was able to use the Blade Demon, his abilities were second to none in the entirety of court. If he had to use another mech, then he would not be as strong anymore. On Earth, Mechanic only used the Blade Demon in his battles and did not allow his opponents to ban the use of mecha. In Mechanic's words, he liked it if the strongest faced the strongest. Solon stopped negotiating with Dita when it was no longer necessary to do so. Earth's gaming atmosphere is ruined. I will bring this matter to the attention of the board for arbitration. Solon, please do not be so childish and look for your daddy and mommy when you lose. Relax, I only want to see whether the beloved wind god mech is terrific, laughed Dita. How could this be the wind god? It's more like a crazy god. I've never seen anything as stupid. Looking at an image of Dita with a flower sign made with his hands made Solon want to punch him. He, however, could not do that. Although the skill level of Earth had improved, the rate of improvement was not that high. The opponent was coming for the wind god mech, and many of the battle clips and images were already scattered across different places. Manalasuo's aim was to make Aslan understand how poor the wind god mech was. Prince was the person in the area who was most familiar with the wind god, however, it still did not work. If it was another person, he or she would have suffered a worse fate. The opponent was certainly collecting data to be compiled into a video. The wind god would have brightened the compilation. The only way was to hold on and not give in, even if it required the crunching and swallowing of one's teeth. Solon's device rang and emitted a strange noise. Wait a moment, I have some business to handle. No problem, all I have is time, said Dita while smiling. Everything happens for a reason. Solon was rising too quickly and was performing well in his career, meaning that he could be promoted to a permanent member of court unexpectedly. Dita also wanted the same role and, compared to Solon, his relationships with people were closer, so he had gotten the news first. Nobody wanted to use a person who failed. When he saw the email, Solon froze. It was not that he had not thought of finding Skeleton. However, when the last email came, it mentioned that he was busy with his own work affairs and could not appear at a moment's notice. I am coming. Please notify me immediately if this situation arises again. Wang Zheng was a true citizen of Earth, so he could not stand for this. After replying to the email, Solon raised his head. Dita felt that the wretched insect in front of him suddenly looked different. Solon started smirking and said, "You ass-selling rotten chrysanthemum, I've been tolerating you for a long time. If you want to fight, then fight all you want." Solon, how dare you scold me? Dita froze and started shaking slightly out of anger. You gigolo, you rotten chrysanthemum. Dita was furious and his hand formed a flower sign. Solon, I am not done with you. I'm not done with you either, rotten ass. The video closed and Solon was finally able to catch his breath. He thought to himself, if he cannot tolerate any more, then he should not tolerate at all. We do not live just for a bowl of rice, we wouldn't starve to death without it. He dared to say this, but it was not a guaranteed victory for Skeleton. More importantly, there was no need to be that weak anymore. The officials publicly declared that Skeleton would battle Mechanic. Wind God vs. Blade Demon. A contest between agility-type mecha. The battle began an hour after the competition was officially announced. Solon was relentless and utilized the entire force of his officials. All players in the region would receive a reminder through their skylinks. Solon was undoubtedly furious. The visitors had come up to their home turf and he swore to brutally beat them. Solon did have a bit of a gambler's temperament in him. The fact that he had managed to be here today was already a win for him. The concept of safety or retreat was nonsensical to him. In this day and age, those that were kind would be bullied, and if one did not bully someone else, they would be bullied instead. Victory or defeat did not matter as long as the battle was fought vigorously. There was a planet named Mar in the Milky Way Alliance. This migrant planet was not big in size and their technological standard was average. Mar had a population of about 3 billion people and possessed a unique, secret mine. They also played an important role in aviation technology and was like a child holding a pile of gold in a market. However, no country wanted to take advantage of them. There was a simple explanation. Their people were soldiers, and they never surrendered. Even if they had one soldier left standing, he would hug a grenade and die with you. If you wanted to destroy the country, the entire planet would be demolished too. I could lose to you, but I would never let my enemies gain anything from me. This was Mars' slogan and was proven through action. As such, this little planet maintained peace even through tumultuous times. Those that were truly brave and courageous were those that did not care about losing their lives, and they were not the minority. Even so, those that were afraid for their lives would still be afraid of those that were mentally deranged. Earth could use this spirit at times. You could only beat someone on the surface and not on the inside. At least in the time when Manalasuo attacked, the Earth players were chasing them from behind. They were not discouraged, even though they could not match their opponents. Even though they're left behind ugly battles, they were not scared away by that. That was because a hero would eventually appear. Earth was a place where the harder you fought, the braver you became, and you could only mount a strong comeback after hitting an all-time low. Prince, Skeleton is here. Hammer immediately opened Prince's door. Prince was blaming himself for the loss that he incurred while representing Earth for the battle. He locked himself in his room and considered quitting and leaving his beloved court. Hammer came into the room and noticed that Prince was not demoralized and sulking but full of energy. "Come, quick, I've finished preparing." Hammer was shocked. Although Prince had a face full of hair, his eyes were shining and his confidence appeared to have returned. What kind of situation was this? Prince could sense Hammer's thoughts and he replied, "Skeleton sent me an email." Following which, he smiled and explained why he seemed so uplifted. He said that my methodology and techniques were not wrong and I only failed to master my rhythm. For the battle later, he will display the wind god's rhythmic techniques. I came here to tell you this. How could this guy only appear now? He is not a professional player and must be busy with his own affairs. We should rely on ourselves. That's true. Haha, everyone has been fuming, but the battle has just begun. Skeleton and Mechanic's battle was an hour away, but nothing would hinder Wang Jung from removing this cancer. Not even if these people he was attacking were people of royalty in Manalasuo. We attack as 5. Even if we all die, we must get one of them. I do not believe they can evade this. Several diamond players from the Black Dragon faction had a discussion. The Manalasuo players had opened a room and were waiting for challengers. People of Earth, confirm quickly. Are you going to fight? The end result will still be the same. You all can choose the method of your doom, haha. Are there any decent players? I might as well go 1v5. That would not work out. We need to draw lots to make a decision. Beating weaker players is something that should be enjoyed by everyone. People of the Black Dragon faction were already pissed off before the beginning of the battle. "Centaur, what are you doing?" shouted Black Dragon, the captain. "Captain, the people of the Skeleton Corps asked me to quit and someone will replace me," said Centaur. "Tell them to get lost, they can battle the next round themselves. We have never worked together before," said Black Dragon angrily. The rude kids opposite him had been playing for many rounds without defeat. That big zero left a burning feeling on the faces of many players from Earth. "No, boss, it's Skeleton." "Oh, my god, are you sure it's Skeletona what? Who?" People from the Skeleton Corps mentioned that it was Skeleton who was coming online and that he wanted to warm up before the main battle, explained Centaur. "Why are you still jabbering? Get out of here right now and leave your spot open. You should have told me earlier," shouted a delighted Black Dragon. "You didn't even let me finish and you even blamed Maya," whispered Centaur to himself quietly. At this time, an ID logged in, and after confirming quickly, it entered the battle. 5 versus 5 on the Battle of Madagascar map, City Warfare map. Black Dragon and his people had a burning feeling even before the battle began. They could not wait to beat the bastards in front of them. There were no restrictions on which mech could be selected, and as such, people directly selected the ones they were most proficient at. Wang Jung directly confirmed his selection of the Wind God. "Sister, this mech was designed by Yi Zissou and even the Aslan Mech Research Center gave it good reviews. You need to be careful." Wei Yin quietly reminded that even though she liked Yi Zissou, she still needed to be on the side of her own people. Aina smiled and stroked her head gently. "Don't keep touching me. I can't grow up if you keep on coddling me." Her cousin was full of confidence and showed no signs of nervousness. Both parties entered the battle arena. People from the Black Dragon faction were brimming with confidence and there was a difference in the feeling about them. In a battle, having a strong captain was extremely important. Skeleton was not only competent individually, he was also able to cooperate well with others. This practically made him overpowered. The match where he coached Prince was described as God's work in the coaching world. "Skeleton, the captaincy will be transferred to you. How to battle will be decided by you. The Black Dragon faction is made up of solid fellows who will get the job done," said Black Dragon. In his circle, There were not many strong enough to gain his admiration, but Skeleton was one of them. The few fellows from Manalasuo are on the list of kings. Their skills and teamwork are of a high level. We will not hold back, even if we have to give our lives for that, said a player with the ID, Small Dragon. I have a humble request. Let me handle this battle solo, said Wang Zheng. The 4 people of the Black Dragon faction were stunned. The opponents were masters from Manalasuo, and Wang Zheng wanted to take 5 of them on alone. Black Dragon only reacted after a short moment and said, "No problem. We will be your cheerleaders." If it was anyone else who said that, he would most likely be met with a ridiculed response. However, it was Skeleton, and he should be trusted. Are the opponents insane? 4 of them are rooted to their spots with only a wind god charging towards us. Lapt felt strange and said, "That's arrogant." Who's that? Wind god again. The people on Earth really like the wind god a lot. It's of no interest to me. Whoever wants to attack can go ahead, said Scissorhands. The 3 others were very arrogant. If not for the promotion by the regional president, they would have been too lazy to come. There was some interest at the start, but it was easy to lose interest with such boring activities like this battle. Since you are my seniors, I will settle it with him. Lapt turned his engine on. His mech was the Gold Wheel, which was produced by Manalasuo's main officials. This mech was not inferior to Arbiter's Slayer, though it was more accurate to say that both were unique in their own ways. The Gold Wheel's setup did not incorporate the alloy knife, but the widely known weapon Crazy Gear Wheels. Its deadly spinning movements could be used to slice apart the opponents easily with its rotational force and weight when thrown outwards. It has to be said that in the category of mech research and development, these countries were far ahead. The Gold Wheel was a mech that was focused on offense. When it went all out, its energy shields were only used to protect it from fatal blows, as everything else on the mech was dedicated to attacking the opponent instead. Lapt had already secured more than 10 kills, which was rather shocking. The opponents in front of him had already been sliced through before even getting close enough to hurt him. Up until then, no one was able to find a way to counter him. Explosions resounded in the city. A loud bang indicated the beginning of a battle. Wang Zheng's wind god saw a uniquely designed mech from afar. Coincidentally, this mech was heavily recommended by Chen Shu in the past. It had terrifying damage potential and its weapon could be released and controlled freely. As long as it was properly handled, its damage potential would multiply. The most important part to take note of was how to recall the gear wheels once they had been thrown out. This attacking pattern was unpredictable and hard to defend against. 2 mecha appeared in each other's field of vision and started to speed up towards each other. Lapt's gold wheel stretched its arms out and 2 gold wheels with a diameter of 2 meters started spinning. Die, little kids. In a short moment, both its arms folded together and lashed out in a throwing motion while charging at the wind god. A whistling sound was heard. Wang Zheng continued to take large strides forward as the 2 golden wheels flew towards his head. It was only through a sudden halt that the golden wheels barely missed his chest. Immediately, the wind god continued to take huge strides forward. Lapt began to sneer and felt that Wang Zheng was naïve and childish. He moved his arms and the golden wheels ferociously flew in the shape of a strange arc and continued to charge towards Wang Zheng. It was as if the wind god did not comprehend what was occurring in front of it as it continued to move forward. With only 5 meters between them, the gold wheel continued to move at the wind god quickly. At this time, a magnetic source was thrown out, with the wind god following the source tightly. With a smooth movement, the wind god was right in front of Lapt in the blink of an eye with the 2 golden wheels spinning behind it. Then the wind god's retractable claw lashed out with a killing blow. Oha! The wind god performed a quick backflip, and upon landing, he did not even look back while taking huge strides away. Booma! 2 golden wheels that had lost their gravitational control ended up stuck on the walls, buzzing loudly. The people from Manalasuo were startled and could not even react in time. How could Lapt simply be finished in a face-off? Was this a joke? Seems like a master has come knocking. Lapt was too careless. I'll do it instead. Scissorhands jumped down from the roof and his mech landed abruptly. It then started charging towards the wind god. He was using Arbiter's Overlord. Arbiter and Manalasuo had similar cultures, and although these countries did not share a good relationship, they were both allies on the international stage. Facing the charging wind god, Scissorhands was sneering while making a judgment on how much energy to spend. It was frankly quite shocking to him that the wind god would openly display his outdated and childish displacement techniques, since this was a sign of overconfidence to him. The Overlord moved towards the wind god like a cannonball. When the Overlord was operated with high skill, it was a vicious short-ranged attacker. It even possessed the sky rocket cannon to create a burst of movement. The distance between the two parties slowly reduced and the giant shield of the Overlord was thrown at the wind god. Everyone exclaimed loudly and wondered why a defensive tool had been tossed away. It was as if Scissorhands could feel that the audience was surprised at his move. Throwing the shield away was nothing to him since a true master was able to understand the essence of the mech and would easily convert defense into offense and utilize offense as a form of defense. Everything required adaptation to different environments and situations, and this was the key to victory. The moment the shield was tossed away, the wind god fired out a magnetic source. Would this hit? The magnetic energy accurately hit the shield and the wind god rushed over majestically. It was a precise movement. The wind god flew towards the shield, stepping on it before using the shield as a platform to launch itself forward. Its movement was as elegant as a dragonfly grazing water and he was headed towards the Overlord. Scissorhands was also shocked. What kind of movement was this? In that short moment, a spear from the Overlord lashed out. No matter how subtle and light his movements were, charging over like that only made him a live target. A battle between masters did not last too long, and activating the energy shield now would be too late since the process took a significant amount of time. Booma! The spear hit the wind god. However, at that moment, the temporary energy shield had activated and, fortunately, the blow hit the energy shield. It was sufficient to limit the extent of damage done to the wind god. The wind god landed on the ground bravely and brushed past quickly. The Overlord was not nearly as agile and lively as the wind god and Scissorhands no longer had his teeth. Scissorhands had quick reflexes and quickly attempted to ram into the wind god. He utilized the advantage of his mech to overwhelm his opponent. However, he had no idea who he was facing. A magnetic source had already shot out and the wind god was following the source closely. The Overlord failed to reach his target and Scissorhands could only watch as the wind god ended up beside him and used his claw to hook onto his head. He reacted subconsciously by turning on the energy shield, but the wind god had already sprung into the air. The Overlord looked as if it was a pillar pointing upwards to support the sky. Booma! The wind god continued to move forward as though he would not miss what he was leaving behind. This was absolute confidence that his attacks would be able to penetrate his opponent's defense. The wind god was moving about with a godlike rhythm. Prince rolled his eyes as he was confident that there was not much of a difference between him and Skeleton when it came to the basic operations of the mech. It was important to comprehend why there were so many outcomes. It was important to make a proper judgment before launching an attack with the wind god, because its direction could be predetermined by the magnetic source. This would, however, take some time. This would result in a thrashing if he was up against a master. However, the outcome could be completely different if he moved quicker and more confidently. In a battle between masters, it was either suppress or be suppressed. Perhaps the outcome would seem one-sided, but the difference was blurred down to a thin line in reality. Most of the time, it came down to one's rhythm and not the operational control of the mech. The party who was able to control the rhythm dictated the whole battle. Prince tightly held his hands together. Skeleton told him about his future training direction since his practice was nowhere near enough. He could only be considered comfortable with the usage of the mech at best and he was not at a level where he was completely in control. The number of people slowly crept to over 10 million, and it was still increasing crazily. Slow motion cameras replayed quickly. The scene where the magnetic energy attacked the shield was too exciting. A parabolic line was tossed out and not a straight line. The skills at play were extremely high level. It was essential to make contact right in the middle, as a slight error would lead to the center of gravity being miscalculated as the shield was rotating. The Overlord had become a welcoming mat for Skeleton. The three others had just come to the realization that they were up against a master. A mental underestimation would lead to a disastrous outcome. Three mechs simultaneously dropped from the roof and surrounded the wind god. They did not give much thought to this bunch of people. Before the contest, they only briefly researched the professional players from Earth. Since their rankings were too low, they lost interest. However, the person in front of them was not in any of the lists of kings. The three of them evidently had great chemistry, striking out at the same time. Three beam sabers lashed across, while Wang Jung threw out two magnetic sources. During the short time frame of that overlapping exchange, a magnetic source flew right out with just one click. The wind god flew from the left walls to the right in an instant, and following that descended from above. Face to face with the wind god, the shadow mech immediately countered the swift movement of the wind god with a beam saber attack into where he thought he would arrive at. He thrusted forward, only to find the wind god gone. The magnetic sources shot out in overlapping tracks. An illusionary image of the wind god appeared. It was all just a diversion. The wind god dashed right towards the bestial dragon mech. The bestial dragon was a typical heavy mech. But the wind god did not bother with it. Boom. It was sent flying. No, it had knocked the opponent back using the mech's momentum. Then at this point, the wind god showed its ultimate killer move. The wind god dashed toward the godly gaze mech. Boom. An explosion was heard. The godly gaze mech was unable to react. It did not even think that after flying all over the place, the wind god's target was actually him. All masters had a bad habit. They never opened fire until the final key moment. If the attack was well done, it would be the work of the heavens. If the attack was not, the bestial dragon and the shadow were enraged. The two mecha burst out madly, but as the wind god's magnetic sources shot out, the mech disappeared behind the building. They immediately chased after it. In just an instant, the wind god had descended from above yet again. This was the greatest part of the magnetic sources. No matter how quick a mech was, it would never be a match to the almost instantaneous displacement of the magnetic source. The shadow reacted very quickly, and the exchange took place in a flash. He activated his energy shield, only to suffer a round of crazy, violent attacks. He gaped and watched as the energy shield was destroyed. Just what sort of monster is he? The bestial dragon charged forward, and the wind god disappeared amongst the rooftops once more. The two mech warriors wanted to give chase by instinct, but the wind god did not go around the building. It moved swiftly and came charging from the front again. The two of them saw him. But seeing with their eyes and physically following up with actions were two different things. Moreover, what they were in the process of turning around, expecting the wind god to come from behind. In the blink of an eye, another round of violent attacks was launched. After finishing a set of attacks, the shadow's energy shield was already destroyed previously, but this time, the bestial dragon took the brunt of the attacks and had managed to cling on to his poor life. The wind god took off again. He had come and gone like the wind. A true wind god. Menchuo and Jia Fulin were furious. They didn't even get to catch their opponent's shadows and were already beaten into such a state. The wind god returned, and the bestial dragon charged at it without a care. Grab him. The bestial dragon's sudden move, coupled with its thunderous vibration attack, managed to slow the wind god down as the shadow arrived. With beam sabers were held high above their heads, they suddenly felt something in their chests. They watched as a humongous figure crashed into shadow. Boom. Hammer and friends couldn't help but shake their fists. They were courting for death. In a flash, it was just bestial dragon left on the battlefield. The wind god had flew off once more. A heavy mech, faced with a light scout-type mech, in the middle of a city. How would it play out? It was a game of a cat chasing a rat. Come on out. Come out. Take me on, one, if you dare. Menchuo yelled madly. All of a sudden, he could sense that something was off. A figure had descended, landing right on top of him, titanium claws cruelly attacking at his head in a flash. This was followed by a backflip with the wind god landing on the floor. The two mech were back to back. Boom! The bestial dragon exploded, sparks flew all over the place. The wind god strolled out from the fire-consumed battlefield. A wind god was born. The blue team was extinguished. Who cared if they were kings? Everything is transient. The Hall of Staff cheered. Manalasuo had been abusing them so much so that they haven't been able to bring themselves to smile. The atmosphere has been too stressful for too long, and in that moment, it was all released. It was simply a work of art. Incredible controls. And of course, the most exciting part was the diversion tactic, tricking the opponents silly. This was a tactic available only on Earth. Taking everyone out in less than 20 minutes. Boss, there are 20 million people online, a staff said coolly. Solon nodded calmly. The Earth District's CT forum bustled as though it was some kind of festival. All sorts of yelling and cheering, and once they take down that arrogant mechanic, the Manalasuo people could scram back home. Wang Jung removed the equipment. Wei Yan sized Wang Jung up and said, I couldn't tell you have such capabilities. That's nothing. These are not actually masters. The real masters probably wouldn't take part in this, but it did allow me to collect more data on some mech. Wang Jung chuckled. Aina's cup of tea. When the two of them were dating, Wang Jung truly didn't sense Aina's princess-like temperament. On the other hand, although Wei Yan was well-tempered, certain details still showed their difference in status. It was only at the debut that Wang Jung first felt Aina was like someone from another world, high and mighty, and even a mountain of gold could not buy her smile. Hey, what's this? You two are treating me like I don't exist again. Can eyes even speak? Let me see. Wang Jung and Aina stared lovingly and longingly at each other. It was clear they were both reminiscing the fun times they shared when Wei Yan's tiny head popped up between them again. Wei Yan has pretty eyes. Such long lashes, exclaimed Wang Jung. Children had to be coaxed. Tisk. Lies. Sister's eyes are clearly the prettiest. They are the most unique pair of eyes in the whole of Milky Way. Wei Yan said, secretly feeling pleased at the compliment. There was no doubt children loved compliments. When it came to fighting standards, Wei Yan and Aina were not professionals. Regardless, they understood that Wang Jung has won. The two girls were there more to experience the atmosphere. The prince was engrossed in watching the match. He had made a mistake in trying to make use of the wind god's strong suit in movement, but it could only be said that given the huge disparity between their capabilities, the wind god was a scout mech which abilities could only be displayed in a complicated terrain. In other words, this was a hunt which required patience. As long as he could disorient his opponents, just one strike would be fatal. He had to go as far as beating down his opponent's confidence. Once they've lost confidence, their will to fight would plummet. He had focused too much on using displacement techniques in his attacks in the past, and that was an easy target for his opponents. Once he could move as he wished, the world became boundless. Wow, that's awesome, Prince. If coupled with my gold guardian, we can definitely turn the world upside down. Yeah, our tactics were way too simple in the past, but I am going to learn more about mecha. The prince's passion had been ignited. Everybody had their own gift, and if it couldn't be mastered in 10 tries, then 100. If not 100, then 1,000 tries, 10,000 tries. So long as it was deemed suitable, he would be able to truly master it someday. Over at Wang Jung's, the mood was relaxed, unlike at Manalasuo. A number of king players had been taken out easily, and it was embarrassing, given that they were broadcasting the battle live, too. The broadcast was titled, Teaching Earth's Newbies the Way, but in the end, they were the ones who were being shown the way. Especially during the final nimble dodge, where the two Manalasuo candidates were completely taken down. It was okay to be defeated, but being crushed humiliatingly was quite a pathetic sight. This wind god's controls and judgment was way quicker than those who came before. Even if they could judge accurately, they were unable to react in time. This was the true essence of the wind god's displacement tactics. The wind god's displacements could definitely be traced, and so there had to be more variations in its routines, and it had to react quicker. That was also the nature of the scout mech. Old Deer and Yao Island were also turning frenzied in the broadcasting studios. Even Old Deer couldn't help but compliment his longtime rival. Having a great understanding of mech and their users' mentalities, Old Deer remained neutral in his views. He analyzed the match from both sides' point of view, while Yao Island tended to take sides from time to time. This could also been seen division of work between commentators. But this match was truly unpleasant. Commentators were humans, too. As they kept watching these people lose, they found themselves at a loss for words. From another point of view, Manilasuo's challenge was also an opportunity of a kind. Victory aside, Earth District was able to show off their capabilities and win the respect of others. The first step was always the hardest. A grand battle was about to kick off in 30 minutes. Solon had already given instructions for the staff to make tight preparation. Nobody could blame Wang Jung and Aina for being unwilling to part ways. It was not easy for Aina to come and visit, but Wang Jung had his own things to take care of. While 3 days were considerably short, he had to go on with his training. Neither knew when would be the next time they would see each other again. They did not even want to think about this at first, but now that they had to be separated once more, they were extremely reluctant to part ways. If not for the fact that Wei Yan was around, the two of them wouldn't even be here. Actually, I've got an idea. Wang Jung, put up a good performance this time round, and sister, you could encourage the Royal Academy to host some sort of exchange program for a month or two. That'd solve your problem, Wei Yan said. Aina was stunned. That's right. From a big picture point of view, the relationship between Aslan and the Solar System Federation was growing, and this matter could be arranged with a little bit of her ingenuity. Aina looked expectantly at Wang Jung, and of course, Wang Jung agreed. He wanted to visit Aslan, too. The renowned Royal Academy was one of the top 10 colleges in the Milky Way. It was the cradle of elites and geniuses. You're such a clever girl, Wei Yan, Aina said, smiling. She was genuinely pleased. Sometimes, being involved made it hard to have a clear view of things. She used to worry about many things, and often, things were not as worrisome as she imagined. Hosting an inter-college exchange was a perfectly normal thing to do. So, student Wang Jung, you've got to do well, Wei Yan patted Wang Jung with her tiny hand, like a child pretending to be an adult. Wang Jung's opponent was getting impatient. The fighter has seen the whole battle, and finally, a hardy rabbit that enjoyed bouncing around for his match. Blade Demon mechs were experts at beating up this type of agile mechs. Moreover, it was already shown that Blade Demon mech could take down all types of scout mechs. Beating an experimental mech like the Wind God would definitely deter any other plausible opponent. Now, our pre-battle interview. Excuse me, mechanic. Having seen the 1-5 battle, what do you expect from player Skeleton? Old Deer asked. Rather professionally. I hope he can continue to hang in there, or I would be disappointed in Earth. Oh, does that mean you're confident in winning? Old Deer went on. The mechanic scoffed. Is that even a question? Do I even need confidence when dealing with people of your kind? Let me tell you this. I am the unbeatable god in the Earth District. The camera zoomed in for a feature of the mechanic's face. Such domineering air. Hey, having confidence is good. Player mechanic, we from the Earth District have a habit of placing bets before a battle. I wonder if you are interested in that? Old Deer asked abruptly. HMPH. Nothing to bet on for a match with no suspense. Not interested. Hey, it's just for a little bit of luck and fun. I'm sure you've got milk cartons on your side. If you win, I'll eat 2 of them. But if you lose, well, considering that you're a guest, you can just eat 1. Old Deer said magnanimously, with an enthusiastic look on his face. The crowd knew very well that the deer god was setting up some sort of trap. As expected, Mechanic sneered coldly. Lose. If I lose, I'll eat 10. Tisk. Not just that, I'll even retire. Stop wasting time, get that thing to come on out already. Acting like a pretentious prick in front of me. I'll beat you till death. The mechanic displayed a finger with an internationally recognized intent. Damn, that level of arrogance was way off the charts. Dita chose players well. To think he could find someone of such finesse. Solon couldn't help but shake his head. All sorts of promotions and advertisements were bringing attention to this fight. He shook his head again. He did not force this scene to happen, but in a way, he was asking for it. Amitabha, may the heavens watch over him. After striking the deal, Old Deer smiled cheerfully. The good thing about being human was being able to meet all other types of humans. He had eaten so many milk cartons himself. Finally, he could share them with someone else now. Just as the deal was made, the number of viewers climbed up by a good 10,000. It seemed that there were still many people who enjoyed this little game. Old Deer had played his trump card. Good luck, Aina suddenly said, kissing Wang Jung. Wei Yan covered her eyes. You two are shameless. I've got to go get my eyes cleaned, Wei Yan said coquettishly. Aina gently hugged Wei Yan and kissed her. There, one for you too. Wang Jung felt as if his heart was going to explode. Was that an encouragement or a distraction? Princess Wei Yan's tiny cheeks were flushed red. She was so beautiful and lovely. She would grow up to make the world fall head over heels for her. The others obviously didn't know that student Wang Jung was enjoying a blissful time. After Wang Jung left, Meng Tian, Zhang Runan, and Zhang Shan were all very worried, but in times like this, they had to work even harder, or outsiders would only despise them. Yuan Yi patted Zhang Shan on the shoulder. Don't worry, it's just an illness, and illnesses can be cured. Paradise Island has made huge leaps in medical advancements. It won't be longer than a few days that he'll come back a stronger man. Yuan Yi was here for Zhang Runan. It was undeniable that the Europa people were quite reliable. Europa College had done very well overall too. Yuan Yi and friends had set their minds straight, focused on playing supporting roles, and even built a good representative out of it. Although they didn't have ability X, they were highly experienced in fighting tough battles and taken some injuries to pave way for the main players. These were not skills that could be replaced by ability X. In fact, sometimes all it took was just an open mind for them to unleash their capabilities. Making their way to Aslan was not the only route to success. It was more important that they made use of such opportunities to display their unique skill sets so that the military would measure their talents and tailor their teachings to give them even more opportunities in future. Moreover, being undisturbed would yield better results for them. Zhang Shan smiled. Of course, Wang Jung will definitely be back. Without him, we'll just fight even harder and fight in his place. Zhang Runan nodded without saying a word. Meng Tian quipped in, here's the training schedule for tomorrow. She swiped her Skylink and sent Zhang Shan a copy of the schedule. This training schedule was not prepared by Su Yan. It was them who had decided to have extra training and planned their own schedule. Wang Jung's temporary absence made them feel nervous and lost. They could only train extra hard to counteract their feelings of disconcertedness. Yuan Yi took a quick glance at the schedule, rubbed his nose, and walked away. The schedule was rather intense. It was all right to have extra training, but he didn't want to follow a training plan like that. Going too far was as bad as not going enough. But Ares College had no choice. They had to do it. They were all inexperienced in maneuvering space mecha, so they needed plenty of fundamental training to strengthen their skills and to figure out the techniques one by one. Without spending long hours maneuvering the mechs themselves, it would be difficult for them to grasp the details, not matter how they were being taught. Even simulations wouldn't help. Some changes in the real settings could never be reflected even in the most advanced simulations. Looking at the schedule, Zhang Shan's only worry was, aren't the sleeping hours a tad too short? For every 24 hours, there were only 4 hours allocated for sleeping. It has to be done. Training in good condition is called performing. Only when you have reached a certain level of fatigue and can still make the correct judgment can you etch all of the tiny details onto your bones and make it a part of yourself. It was clear that Meng Tian was even more determined to do this. Another day of training had ended. The atmosphere in the dining hall was subtle. Without Wang Jung, the unexpected element, the moon crowd was shining. It was not just the effect of them playing on their home ground. They were starting to take the lead in various aspects. The 8 stars were balanced and well-rounded. They were not lacking in any area. More than that, Achilles was parading around like the one true leader. Regardless of fighting capabilities or intelligence, he stood out squarely. While Lai Xin and Lear were not entirely disadvantaged, the fine distance between them was distance nonetheless. They made eye contact inadvertently, but they still could not bring themselves to form an alliance. Lai Xin would never trust Lear, and as for Lear, it was unclear what he wanted to do. The Earth District was his home ground, and he would not accept having to return in defeat. Rastin smiled from eye to eye. He seemed undisturbed, despite having completely lost his chance at becoming team captain. Lear, whatever trump cards you've got, now's the time to play them. If you let Achilles go on like this, it won't just be Lai Shin's disadvantage. Lear smiled. My problems would be resolved if you came to help me. Never, ever expect to get useful information straight out of Lear. Rastin shrugged. Ha, you know we'll never be put on the same team. Rastin was straightforward. If someone else said the same thing, it may have sounded provocative, but it felt natural coming out of Rastin. Lear smiled, unaffected. Further away, where the moon people sat, Otto's shadily sized up Rastin and Lear. Those guys. How could they even be in the same run for captain as boss? Otto's had been strutting around, showing off during training as of late. He has made a complete comeback and had steadily made it to top 10 every time. His speed ability X had a lot of room for display in space. It could be considered one of the most powerful ability X's in space. Don't underestimate Rastin. He's still very powerful. Masashi shook his head. He sensed that Otto's attitude was going out of control, but it was still understandable. All his life Otto's had never experienced real failure. Being defeated on Earth was a huge blow for him. The Otto's today could be the true Otto's, or could be a changed person, but it was undeniable that this Otto's had become stronger. The past couple of days of training had also proved just this. Otto's smirked. Powerful, I find him rather average after he lost to Wang Jung the other time. Milo frowned and said, calm down, Otto's. Rastin didn't use his full strength. What happened seemed to show us that Wang Jung was actually very powerful. Plus, he wasn't accustomed to Earth mecha. The differences were huge. In this day and age, all sorts of mecha were available, and everybody had their own mech that was specially suited for them. If maneuvering other mecha put their fighting capability at 1, maneuvering their specialty mech would make them 3, 5, or even more than 10 times stronger. Taros laughed. Rastin is good, but given his capabilities, he may not be Otto's match in space. Otto's and Taros were on pretty good terms lately. The two had swapped rooms with others to bunk together. Otto's smiled. Don't worry, I have no interest in Rastin. Boss will teach him a lesson. Wang Jung, on the other hand, he's lucky he got away, or I'd beat him into pulp every time I saw him on the training grounds. You turn Wang Jung into a pulp. Take a piss and look at your own reflection in it. Look at what type of person you were before speaking. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot dogs don't speak human. Zhang Shan, Meng Tian, and Zhang Runan were walking down the corridor just as Otto said that. Even if they hadn't walked past, given Otto's volume, those who had a slightly better sense of hearing could have heard him from the dining hall. Rastin smiled, definitely unaffected by what Otto said. His capabilities were there for all to see, and he was not easily affected by random barks. He didn't have the ambition to be team captain, so there was no need for him to build a name here. Zhang Shan, on the other hand, was furious. They were different. Wang Jung was not around, but as Wang Jung's counterparts, they simply could not put up with such attacks. Once you show a sign of weakness in the army, you'll be labeled weak and bullied by everyone. When faced with provocation, regardless of it being direct or indirect, you have to fight back. Victory was secondary, for your attitude would determine your fate. Nobody in the force would want to befriend or to be teammates with a weakling. Moreover, he had nothing to lose when it came to Otto's. Otto's was calm. He crossed his legs and said, "You're pretty arrogant for a useless bootlicker, Wang Jung is gone, you'd better make yourself scarce or I'll beat you up." The moon's 8 stars each made a different face, but even though Otto's had said some awful things, he was trying to demean Wang Jung such that the others saw the people of the moon in a better light. Achilles didn't see that intent, but he didn't stop them either. Zhang Shan burst out laughing. Words cannot be used to determine who the useless prick is. We're soldiers, so let's use the soldierly way to do this. Duel. Otto's cocked his head backward and chuckled. Ha, you. Did I hear wrong? You. Duel with me. Ha ha ha. Why? You're only good at bragging, Or are you a coward who's scared of losing? If you can't afford to lose, just tell me. I can consider letting you off. Zhongshan gave Otto's a tilted glance and stuck his pinky out. Otto's was enraged. Earthlings are just good at talk. You'll cry and ask for your mom and dad when you lose. Interesting. Since we're on the moon, let's have a space duel and see the fruits of your training. Su Yan's voice traveled from the hall's entrance. Nobody knew when he had arrived, but it seemed that they had a different set of rules now that they're on the moon. Zhang Runan glanced at Zhongshan and said, "Zhongshan, take him out." Zhongshan straightened himself and looked serious. "Don't worry. Zhongshan, never drop the ball in times of need." After he got used to the space mech, Zhongshan had been going through high-level training. Others might not have noticed, but Meng Tian and Zhang Runan knew that Zhongshan had made drastic improvement. Most importantly, he had always had a good sense of space. Once he became accustomed to things, it was as if he was enlightened and understood things quickly. On the other side, Achilles patted Otto's on the back without a word, but his meaning was clear: since they were fighting, he must not lose. Otto's was austere. He grinned widely. He wanted to make a good name for himself too. He was Otto's. The quick Otto's. The absolute winner, Otto's. They were free to choose any mech in the space duel. Zhongshan did not hesitate at choosing the Barton mech. It was a mech made by Earth for space forces and was well balanced in powers, nothing special. It wasn't that there were no better mecha available, but Zhongshan knew his own skill level well. A better mech would only be powerful if he could maneuver it well. The Barton mech may appear weak, but it was the one option that could display Zhongshan's current capabilities to its best. As the Barton mech slowly made its entrance, the atmosphere started to get warm. This time around, everybody was watching the match from the grandstands. 6 enormous digital screens captured the space duel from every angle possible. Judging by the choice he made, Zhongshan was very calm. When Otto's appeared on the field, the grandstands broke into commotion. Avalanche Space Type 3, the most powerful mech amongst the standard space mecha from the moon. 5 stars in speed, 5 stars in close combat firing, and a 5-star shield. Apart from a slightly weaker long-distance firing capabilities, this was a near-perfect space mech. Damn, couldn't this dude pick something more average? That's unfair, Yuan Yi said. Taro scoffed. Unfair. The level of difficulty in controlling the Avalanche Space Type 3 is also ranked at 5 stars. Incapable of using something better and yet not allowing others to use. What logic? Some people agreed, while others begged to differ. Just then, Su Yan's voice echoed, "Rules, there are no rules. Use whatever tactics you like to attack your opponent." Zhongshan versus Otto's was like dried wood in a blazing fire. The moon clashing with Earth, they had to battle to straighten things out between them, no matter what. Zhongshan only dared to pick the Barton mech. Goes to show that his abilities are limited. Lai Xin smiled. Lack of confidence, it seems. Rastin grinned. This guy likes excitement. I'll bet you $10 that Mountain Maiden will win. Lai Xin glanced at him. Just tell me if you're short of money. We're in the army here. You don't get it, sister. This is called fun. I'm betting Otto's will win. Lai Guang chuckled. There was no doubt that the moon was the leader in space matches. The moment the Avalanche Space Type 3 turned on, it drew a huge arch in the vacuum and stared straight at Zhongshan while making a tactical defense move. Zhongshan used the long-range weapons to fire a few laser shots, but he missed entirely. The Avalanche Space Type 3 was too fast. Plus, Otto's was the best at speed and was 100% confident. Zhongshan wisely decided to defend and wait for his opponent to attack instead. Firing at random would only make him lose confidence. Otto's grinned and dashed toward Zhongshan at high speeds in his mech. He didn't just want to beat his opponent up, he wanted to humiliate him. Boom! Close-range suppression. The Avalanche Space Type 3's close combat abilities were definitely at the top among common space mecha. With a changing remote laser Type 9 weapon set, a set that combined all close combat weapons but different from the usual laser swords and spears, this equipment could automatically change laser types depending on the situation. It could change from the beam saber into a beam spear and vice versa, instantaneously. This type of ever-changing sparring often caught opponents off guard, making it a huge advantage that stood out especially clearly in a duel match. Seeing Otto sweep at him using the laser spear, watching it turn into a sword in an instant, and cutting close to his arms, Zhongshan was caught defenseless. He dropped down at high speed and attempted to fly into Otto's blind spot so as to get a chance at striking back. Otto smiled coolly. This type of dodging movement would be considered high level on the ground, but in space, this was nothing. The vision of a space mech was different. Boom, boom, boom. He fired the laser gun, blocking Zhongshan's escape route, forcing Zhongshan to fight him head-on. Zhongshan gave a vicious look and struck. Boom. The Barton mech's engines fired wildly. Controlling the mech by force, Zhongshan maneuvered the Barton mech into making a turn and charged back like a typhoon. Otto's was taken by surprise. He actually felt threatened. Boom. The laser sword turned into a spear. The radius of attack was 3 times that of the sword. He pointed the spearhead at Zhongshan and charged. Boom. The Barton mech stopped abruptly. The laser spear had interrupted its momentum. He could only take a step back and build the momentum up again. Otto's did not dare to give chase. He turned around and maneuvered the avalanche space mech into high-speed drive, looking for flaws in Zhongshan's movement. Back at the grandstands, there were all sorts of cheering and yelling, mostly in support of Otto's. At this point, it wasn't just the IG candidates from the training camp who were watching. There were also soldiers from the space station. Otto's. Most of these soldiers were born and raised on the moon, so they naturally recognized Otto's as one of the 8 stars from Moon. The opponent is from Earth. Hey, Otto's is making a fool out of him. Woohoo, Otto's. Let's go. Hearing the cheers from the soldiers ring, Lai Shin smiled. Was Otto's really just putting on a show? If Otto's hadn't changed weapons earlier on and forced the laser sword on him, Zhongshan would have been doomed. Rastin smiled. He's not putting on a show, he's afraid. The more cocky he is, the more vulnerable he feels. Zhongshan barely defended and Otto's has become wary. Rastin had venomous, sharp eyes. The Moon people were calm. They saw that Otto's was using his true abilities to fight and was not that weak. Just then, the situation took another turn. Otto's adjusted himself and charged right down. Making use of the mech's high-speed advantage, he gained an upper hand in launching attacks while Zhongshan could only defend and defend, leaving him with no chance to fight back. Boom. The 2 beam sabers struck. Zhongshan was at a complete disadvantage, and he felt like he was bound to lose. Zhongshan did not will himself to feel that way. His opponent was indeed faster and fiercer than he was. After they fought head-on once, his opponent had stopped scheming and refused to risk anything. He was merely consolidating his advantages and making Zhongshan feel helpless. Zhongshan's understanding of space did not translate into a direct victory. Was knowledge and intelligence that negligible in battle? He felt indignant and was reluctant to be defeated. On top of the sense of loss, Wang Zheng's departure had given them lots to think about. Why am I here? Why do I have to be so hard on myself? Wang Zheng, how are you so powerful? Come on, share some of your techniques. Feels like a clever brain has no use in a battle. Zhongshan had always prided himself in his level of intelligence. Even if he was defeated in training, he remained proud of it. But as the selection went on, his pride drained as he was no longer a physics student. Battling smart can still help you win the war. When you have no clue of what to do, treat your opponent like a physics question. Spinning silk into cocoons. Stay calm. All of a sudden, Zhongshan got it. He was clear-headed now. Otto's was not letting down on his high-speed attacks, but he felt much less stressful now. But right now, as Otto's attacked rhythmically, Zhongshan could only cling on to 2 things, to stay calm and adapt. After he rid himself of the mental burden, Zhongshan's movements indeed became a tad faster and smoother. He could fully display the Barton mech's specialties and even suppress some of Otto's killer moves. Otto's was so mad that he wanted to murder someone. He actually had even harsher tactics up his sleeve, but he was wary of Zhongshan's ability of warping. That ability was much harder to deal with in space, and so, before he forced Zhongshan into using his 1 use per day ability, he couldn't set his heart on launching a sure kill. However, at that very moment, things took for a turn. Zhongshan was now on par with him in the battlefield. Although he still had the upper hand, Zhongshan was like a hedgehog, poking at him, making him feel uncomfortable. Eventually, Otto's could not hold it back any longer. The fight had gone on for far too long. Even if he won, it wouldn't do him any good. It would only give Zhongshan a good reputation. Roar. He wanted to force Zhongshan into using his ability X, but under such circumstances, things were no longer within his control. Extreme speed ability, go. The avalanche space mech's speed immediately changed. It was an eerie change. It didn't appear fast, but when paid close attention to, you would notice the mech left behind something like a crack in space. Atos's extreme speed ability was a fine control of speed when used on a space mech, not just pure acceleration. Taros gleamed and cheered loudly. Achilles looked on approvingly too. Otto's had been controlling his speed, but it was rather problematic. His extreme speed advantage alone was quite a sight in the solar system, but it was nothing if compared to the entire Milky Way's IG. His exquisite control of speed, though, was on a whole different level. Otto's had gone through many things and had made all sorts of mistakes, but when this ability was used, he could hold some ground in the IG world. Zhongshan felt giddy and a little nauseous. The opponent's speed caused some change in his perception. Zhongshan forced himself to calm down, and the look on his face changed. If he had not misjudged this feeling, if it were others, they wouldn't feel what Zhongshan felt. That was the exact same feeling he had when he couldn't get used to space at first. Zhongshan smiled. He might have been doomed if it was another ability. Or if Otto sprang right at him without showing off his high level of speed control, he could only use his warp ability X to get away. Now, the happily showing off Otto's looked like a flea jumping around in Zhongshan's eyes. Stay calm. Right at the brink of a crisis, he moved at an incredible speed, avoiding Otto's wild attack. Zhongshan could only displace himself a short distance, but in space, he appeared light and floating. A life-saving move indeed. It was just that. Staying alive alone was of no use. Having forced Zhongshan to use his ability, Otto's was feeling full of himself. He could maintain his speed for some time. The mech hung mid-space. Otto's was getting ready to deliver the fatal blow. He looked mockingly at Zhongshan, as if he was in a game of catch. He was not going to get away this time around. The mech boomed. The avalanche mech cut through space like a ray of light, charging at Zhongshan, launching a full blow to take Zhongshan out in a single attack. Zhongshan's energy shield was ready. High-speed attacks could not destroy his energy shield. This was the one thing that Zhongshan was able to do. In a match like this, using the energy shield would cause half the energy of the mech to deplete. The high-speed avalanche suddenly pulled up a few meters in front of Zhongshan, laser cannons aimed at him. Everyone in the arena held their breaths. They all thought that Otto's would use his beam saber to cut Zhongshan to death. They didn't expect Otto's to remain so calm at this juncture. Laser cannon. The avalanche mech was not so good at long-range firing. The cannons were powerful but had slow firing speeds. Nobody had expected Otto's to turn his greatest weakness into his greatest strength. The abrupt stop caught everyone by surprise, but while charging at Zhongshan, the laser cannons had accumulated energy. The beam sabers were just a decoy. Go to hell, dumbass. Energy shields were of no use in such close-range firing. It was a much wiser option than the beam saber. With energy shields on, and with so little reaction time given, Zhongshan's mech couldn't do a thing before the laser fired. But Zhongshan's mech had disappeared. Just as the laser cannon fired into the vacuum, Zhongshan appeared behind Otto's. You're too stupid for this. Beam saber attack. Boom. The avalanche mech imploded. Roar. Zhongshan roared wildly. This was his first meaningful victory. He was drenched in sweat from excitement. He had finally experienced the feeling Wang Zheng so often described. The more crucial things became, the more excited he felt, and the calmer the mind got. The curious mix of excitement and calmness had reached a level beyond the soul's comprehension. His mind could suddenly work, and in that most crucial moment, even his abilities improved and allowed him to displace for a second time. A key breakthrough. He had finally gotten a taste of this feeling of victory. Winning by 0.1 seconds. If he was any slower, Zhongshan would most certainly have been blown to bits, but that was just the essence of it. Only the Barton mech remained in the air. Winner. Zhongshan. Su Yan gave a look of surprise. 2 displacements in a short span of time. Zhongshan had again shown improvement. Even though it was just 1 time more than before, it was definitely a huge leap. In terms of potential, they'd gone 1 level up. Given the issue with Wang Zheng, he thought that the Earthlings would lose their will to fight, but instead, their potential was unleashed. Regardless of selection results, Zhongshan was bound to enter the list of key candidates the army was to nurture. Zhongshan stepped out of the mech hangar into a round of rapturous applause and cheers. He was brought into the selection by Wang Zheng and was doubted by many. It had been extremely stressful, but after this match, there shouldn't be anyone who'd doubt him anymore. Yuan Yi gave Zhongshan 2 hard punches on his shoulder. Wow, dude. You're the second Wang Zheng, Ares College is really coming through this time, Great fight, Zhongshan. Meng Tian and Zhang Runan were truly happy for him. It was a calm and swift fight, luring the enemy in and taking him out in a single blow. Classic. Haha, I remembered Wang Zheng's secret technique at the very last minute. Tisk tisk, real useful. It was enough to beat up trash like Otto's. Otto's charged out at him like a mad dog from the other simulation pod. That didn't count. Again. But Masashi and friends held him back. If he continued to behave like that, he would embarrass everybody. Otto's was capable, but he had gotten ahead of himself. Milo took a quick glance at Achilles and saw the disappointment in his eyes. She knew that he had given up on Otto's. A person like that did not deserve to remain by his side. Zhongshan had put up an exciting fight, showing everyone that even without Wang Zheng, Earth was not to be trifled with. Wang Zheng, on the other hand, was getting ready to face his final opponent, Mechanic. Why the name, Mechanic? That was because, on Manalasuo, the best pilot was known as Mechanic, and so that person would use that as his ID. Using the ID without any capabilities would only invite sneering and mockery, but having real capabilities meant suppressing the opponent. Invitation to the final match. Mechanic was to initiate and pick the battle map. New York Defense Battle. A classic city battle scene. What was that? This terrain was undoubtedly most suited for the Wind God. This mechanic's arrogance was way off the charts. Titus smiled, relaxed, waiting for his opponent to arrive. What surprised him most was how a common match like that had managed to attract more than 30 million viewers. What a joke. Having 10 million viewers was insane. To think so many people would tune into this. And so, he was excited. From the fact that he dared to use the ID, Mechanic, it was clear that he was a confident and showy person. He could only dwell on how to beat his opponent into a pulp. The Wind God, a bunny-like thing, jumping all over the place. He would use the Blade Demon to teach his opponent a good lesson. The staff of OMG was also waiting for the live broadcast to come through. They knew very well that Skeleton's performance would give them something special. Yi Zissou, together with everyone else, held her hands tightly, bursting with pride. The Wind God had already proven that CT's popularity at this stage was unimportant, but as her firstborn design, Yi Zissou naturally hoped that the Wind God could continue to bask in glory. The Blade Demon was no doubt a classic mech. It was considered quite a piece of work in the entire Milky Way's mech design industry, a masterpiece created by the top mech designing team from Scissors Company in Manalasuo, and a breakthrough in mech movement. Nonetheless, Yi Zissou was confident in her Wind God. The Wind God was harder to control than the Blade Demon. It was difficult to grasp the timing that the magnetic sources should be deployed. That part really required a lot more practice to master, and it was also the reason why the Wind God was considered a high-end mech. Mechanic, block his displacement. Don't give this guy any chance to jump all over the place. A mech like the Wind God will lose its fighting capabilities once its movement is blocked. Don't worry. Given the Blade Demon's displacement speed, the Wind God doesn't stand a single chance. Just look at what he's dealing with. The 2 mech warriors showed up at the same time in New York City, under tens of thousands of watchful eyes. Menchuo and his gang were considered masters, but they were still a notch below Mechanic. The kings had ranks within, and when Mechanic used the Blade Demon, he was truly invincible. The key to this match lies with displacement. Old Deer said, providing a rather professional viewpoint. Skeleton should maintain a good distance right from the start. The Blade Demon is able to use its displacement more often, but the Wind God is definitely better in terms of agility. You've got to show it. Old Deer sounded confident, though he felt nervous inside. This was the first time he placed bets on Skeleton, and it would be depressing if he lost. Old Deer, no fear. You should have believed that Skeleton was the eternal victor long ago, ha. Yao Island was rather chirpy. He had received a detailed analysis of the Blade Demon mech. Chen Shu had sent him a copy. Now that he was a freelance commentator, Yao Island's popularity at school skyrocketed, and he could be considered a famous person. Don't be superstitious. Ha ha. You were right, this is a battle of distance. The one who controls the distance will be the one to control how this battle goes. Wang Zheng rode the Wind God towards the Blade Demon. Neither party seemed to have any intentions of going around. The Blade Demon was clearly confident in his own judgment and techniques, or he wouldn't have picked a battle scene that would suit the Wind God. Watching the Wind God come towards him, Titus' smile grew wide. Boom! The Blade Demon attacked. The Blade Demon mech was one size bigger than the Wind God, but it was faster in both attack and activating its displacement. Faced with the Blade Demon's charge, the Wind God picked up speed too. Zoom! The 100 refinement blades were drawn. Rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat, rat-a-tat. The two mecha were now just tens of meters apart, and the Wind God still did not show signs of changing his direction of attack using the magnetic sources. 20 meters. They were dangerously close now. The Wind God had to move quickly. But Skeleton's Wind God continued to advance steadily, seemingly without a plan. Was he going to battle head-on? No way. Old Deer's jaw dropped further and further down. He felt disconcerted. It seemed like the Skeleton still had a problem with him. The Wind God was a scout mech that needed to move around to find loopholes to attack. Was Skeleton crazy enough to take on a fighter-type mech head-on? Titus grinned coolly. You enjoy shows, don't you? I'll show you this time. 10 meters. It was time to move. In fact, the Wind God's last chance to move. However, Skeleton seemed to be accumulating strength for a melee battle. That would kill him. The Blade Demon attacked. Zoom, zoom, zoom. The Blade Demon mech made an awesome triple arc slide, swiftly attacking 3 times a row. Bang, bang. 2 strikes missed as the Wind God blocked them with its claws. But parrying the blade like that was just a decoy launched by Titus. By its 3rd slide, the Blade Demon had arrived behind the Wind God, holding the 100 refined blade with 2 hands, violently slashing down. That was Titus' favorite killer move, a public execution. The crowd gaped. Old Deer was embarrassed. Facing the Blade Demon head-on was a damn suicide mission. The Blade Demon had to be quick. He had easily suppressed the Wind God, but even fools knew to shy from weakness and display strength. There was no use in wanting to deploy a magnetic source now. From a distance like that, deploying and catching up with the source would take time. It didn't matter how fast he was, the opponent was even faster. Skeleton was bound to be crushed. Old Deer stared hard. Damn it, not using things at the right time. Would Skeleton finally be defeated this time? In an instant. Boom. The Wind God did not even look back. It launched an instant back kick. Using the force to thrust himself forward, he pulled their distance apart immediately. Titus was glad to be struck. Ha! Trying to play punk at this juncture. Do you think I'm a newbie here? The Blade Demon kept control and glided over in a flash. The 100 refined blades struck once more, this time with even greater force. However, the Wind God did not run. It turned back right at the same time. Boom. Leaning landslide. Every flaw was a threat. The Wind God had a lower center of gravity, and with an instant displacement at this distance, the 100 refined blade had only just landed. A vigorous quake resounded. The Blade Demon took a few steps backwards. Just then, a ray of light shot past the magnetic source. The 100 refined blade slashed towards the sky, and in an instant, the magnetic source was destroyed. Numbnut. How could he possibly let this thing hit him? Titus took a few steps back and neutralized the force from the leaning landslide. It was a powerful strike, but the impact wasn't too bad in a CT backseat. This was a truly astounding mech that could share much of the pilot's burden. Arc slide step. Given the mech's powers, this move was faster than the usual slide steps. The mech charged right at the wind god. In a short distance like that, the magnetic source could only be used for an escape, and even then, it may not succeed. Once such a move was made, the opponent would surely follow up and give chase endlessly. Zoom, zoom, zoom. The blades danced and waved in the air as the two clashed. Neither of them used a shield, and one strike was all it would take for it to be over. Titus grew more and more excited as things went on. This guy had some great moves. A pro, it seemed. It wasn't easy to shun from his attacks, but his opponent was managing to maintain a fine control of the distance between them. He had surely heard of this one part of the world that was proficient in skills thought to be lost forever, something known as martial arts, but either way, he couldn't be bothered with such nonsense. Mecha were king. Speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness made the king invincible. In terms of moves, the mech's capabilities would allow one to come up with sequential moves and tactics. This martial arts thingy was simply a joke. Legend had it that this thing originated from Earth, and he didn't expect to face off against a weirdo like that towards the end of the event. The 100 refined blades spun quicker and quicker, making a whirring sound as it cut through the air. Everybody watched as the wind god dodged the knife from left to right, with a few close shaves. That wouldn't do. Dancing on the edge of the knife was too risky. He may get taken out any time. However, a dozen strikes later, the wind god remained unhurt, and everybody's hopes began to grow. Wild attacks were normally followed by retaliation. Menchuo and friends were pleased. We're in luck today. Mechanic is taking this seriously now. Tisk tisk. A rare occurrence that happens once or twice a year. To think it could happen here. Zoom. The 100 refined blades swept right across, forcing the wind god to retreat and pulling their distance apart. It seemed like Mechanic's energy was spent and it was time to blow the horns for a retaliation, when a bright ray of light erupted from the blade demon mech. No. Quick. Hide. Yao Island jumped straight up in the broadcasting studio. Not many people were able to make use of the blade demon's additional functions. It carried the same effects as the wind god's emergency energy shields that activated at the very last moment. Under non-stop high-speed build-up, the blade demon's energy shield could be adjusted to a minimum, releasing the excess energy in the form of a typhoon. Zoom. A mini typhoon that was visible to the naked eye went spiraling towards the wind god. An energy attack. The blade demon cackled and followed. I'll give you a taste of a show. This could never be dodged. The wind god was swept up into the skies in just a flash. The blade demon caught up, launching him into the air. There was no chance of shunning in the air. The Imperial Dragon's soaring attack. Shiver in fear, idiotic Earth people. You will never be able to achieve such great heights. The 100 refined blade came chopping wildly at the wind god. The mech's engines ran at its highest speed as it charged at the wind god like a bull and burst all out in one go. All those attacks before this were actually just accumulating force. As the brightest pearl among the Manalasuo kings, Titus' abilities were clear and true to his name. Nobody could block such an intense attack. Even masters from Aslan had been slain by him. Techniques like that only existed in legends. Only a world like CT could make it come alive. This was an art. This was perfection. Zoom zoom zoom. Sword light arched out. Stuck midair, Wang Jung did not expect to face such an attack. A surprise energy typhoon was indeed unavoidable, and others would surely panic if swept up like that. They would be unable to move or find an entry point for force. But nobody had ever said being swept up in the air would definitely mean getting beaten up. Up in the air, the wind god waited for its opponent to strike. Its titanium claws sprang out. Regardless of the speed of the blades, they were merely attacks. But if they couldn't be blocked, he'd be dead. 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes, 13 violent blows, every blow blocked flawlessly. This time around, the blade demon was truly spent. It was time to take control. The blade demon plummeted, while the wind god made use of the opponent's force to stay in the air. Just then, a magnetic source fired out. It was an old trick, and the blade demon could only attempt to block it. The magnetic source trapped the 100 refined blade, and the wind god descended from above. Booma! A violent clash aimed directly at the blade demon. The mech retreated quickly, but the wind god gave chase like the wind, kicking it on the side. The tumbling blade demon lost its balance and fell on its back. Titus tried to take control, but he had used up too much energy in his earlier moves. Even after using all his might, he was unable to act as he wished. The wind god's magnetic source flew out again. Bang! The mech fell right down. Boom! The blade demon was floored. He quickly lashed around him with the 100 refined blades sweeping around. Titus was stunned at what had just happened. Yet right at this moment, the wind god leapt, tossing a magnetic source to the left and another to the right. Left or right? Titus clenched his teeth. Watching his opponent's moves, he violently struck down on the left. However, he hit empty air. The wind god had gone to his right. Its claws came down, and the 100 refined blade was knocked flying into the walls. The wind god landed right on the blade demon and retracted its claws. A breathtaking pause. Boom 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 boom. Boxing time. The wind god struck left and right, raining blow after blow on the blade demon. Truth be told, that wasn't any technique. Just primitive, violent punches. Titus tried pushing the wind god away, but every time he lifted his head, he would be punched back into the ground. The blade demon lifted its legs in an attempt to flip the wind god off, only to realize that it was stuck waist down. Flailing its legs like a roach was of no use. Damn, that's harsh. Our international friend won't dare to come back again. Hammer couldn't help but giggle. Even Prince chuckled. He knew that Skeleton was avenging him. When it came to respectable opponents, Skeleton would definitely show respect. However, this type of opponent was simply asking for it. Titus had a hatred of being violently attacked and struggled with all his might. He used all sorts of methods and tactics, only to be easily blocked, locked, swept, and swiped away by the wind god. Every time he fought back, he received a violent beating on his face. Empty-handed and full of energy, his mech they had an advantage and shouldn't have been suppressed by the opponent this way. However, every move it made was blocked and followed by a round of harsh blows. After struggling a dozen times, Titus was finally beaten. He still had strength left in him, but he had already lost all hope. His opponent was hanging him up for a beating. With unimaginable techniques that were way beyond his comprehension. On Earth, martial arts were found in many forms, such as wrestling, and were practiced by many pilots, including CT players, on top of their gym routines. This was prominent in the solar system. However, the understanding of the anatomy and the actual control of the mech were two separate issues that were pretty much of no use in battles. Yet the wind god had managed to show, for once, martial arts in the mech world. It was untrue that martial arts were useless. It was just that physically wrestling was different from wrestling in mecha. The concept itself was not the same, and required a different understanding. But when you got around to it, the tables would turn. An agile mech like the wind god, when maneuvered by a pilot like that, was simply invincible. Wang Jung could feel his opponent's desperation and hopelessness. He deployed magnetic sources, and the wind god leapt right onto them to remove the 100 refined blade from the wall. The blade demon laid quietly on the floor the whole time. It did not struggle. Sometimes, struggling would only bring more suffering. Wang Jung walked over slowly, the 100 refined blade held high above his head, reflecting a cold ray of light. A public execution. The suppressed viewers on Earth went completely wild. Who'd ask this guy to behave in such a cocky way? There's a price to pay for acting like that. Skeleton was the spiritual warrior of the people. An attack made in silence. Both opponents and teammates were deeply astounded by this scene. A scene that would forever be etched in their minds. Manalasuo can pack up and go home. Cheers erupted from every corner. Old Deer couldn't contain his joy any longer. He won. It felt weird, but for once, he didn't have to eat another milk carton. It wouldn't matter if Mechanic ate the milk cartons. Eating would mean he was a credible man. Not eating would only go to show that he was weaker than noobs. But it was clear that not everybody was as credible as Old Deer. Following their defeat, Titus and gang went offline right away, without giving any opportunities for an interview. Our counterparts from Manilasuo are beyond unprofessional. Where are the milk cartons they've promised? Yao Island couldn't help but feel enraged. That was a key part of the show that many were waiting to see. Old Deer was between laughter and tears. Yao Island looked embarrassed, but regardless, he would never eat the boxes on others' behalf. You could do anything for others, but not this. A glamorous, glorious victory. Yet it was hardly a challenge for Wang Zheng. He was just avenging his friend, battling a little bit. Even so, he felt a urge within, and all he wanted was to quickly get back to the training camp. Only challenges had meaning to him. Space battles made up half the battlefield, and he could never let himself lack in that area. Right at that moment, Aina and Lin Weiyan joyfully ran over with smiles on their faces. Wang Zheng knew that they were happy not because of how exciting the match was, but because he had won. With Weiyan around, Wang Zheng and Aina couldn't go overboard. Girls were easily embarrassed. Even if student Wang were thick-skinned, he still couldn't bring himself to act so boldly. The thing was, that last Lin Weiyan very much lacked awareness. She had not given the two of them any personal space, not even till the very end. Aina and Weiyan left first. They would return to Aslan once Weiyan finished her concert tour and would then make arrangements for Wang Zheng to come to Aslan as an exchange student. Wang Zheng felt warm at that very thought. The ship landed. Su Yan looked at a powerful Wang Zheng and smiled. Let's go. The rest have been waiting for a long time. The general had given this lad preferential treatment, but as a soldier, he was only concerned with following orders and couldn't be bothered with other matters. Drachmak had received thanks from the other party. Thanks a lot for this, General Drachmak. Hey, it's not an issue, not an issue. Oh, no, I owe you a debt. I'll repay you in due time. The Skylink ended. Drachmak was bewildered. How very interesting. How had Wang Zheng attracted the attention of the Aslan military? A small favor in exchange for an Aslan admiral's personal debt was extremely worthwhile. 3 days were really short, but for the people in the training camp, it meant that they had improved by leaps and bounds. They were all going through a transformation, and each and every day was precious. Especially for Zhang Shan. Winning battles gave Zhang Shan confidence as well as fame. Nobody dared to say that he was there just by fortune anymore. Otto's, on the other end, was utterly embarrassed. Many couldn't put up with his bad temper, saying he was not suited for a team. Plus, he was way too petty, bearing grudges over little things for a long time. Failure was nothing to be afraid of. Hard work could make up for things, and people who worked hard after failing were definitely much more respectable. However, in subsequent training sessions, Otto's was lazy and uncooperative, making the Moon team feel helpless. Eventually, Achilles had an outburst. He chided Otto's harshly in front of everyone else. If Otto's refused to work hard, he'd have to leave. This was the Moon's main battle. Achilles had stellar results, and even though Lai Xin and Lear were not too bad themselves, they were still far from Achilles. The Moon team had put up a skillful performance and were rather stunning, but Otto's was being that one black sheep. It was evident that Achilles wanted to conquer people from both Earth and the Moon. In a team, he would need someone with abilities like Zhang Shan's, which would come in handy in Aslan. As team leader, his vision could not be limited to the Moon. Depending solely on the Moon would not win him anything in the Milky Way. And so, he had to stand on higher ground, which was also why he had been able to put up with these people. Otto's existence was ruining this part of the picture, and he needed some reminder. Lear was tormented on Earth and had returned in defeat. He could be considered useless and was at disadvantage in the fight to become team leader. That fatty, Luo Fei, however, had been doing well. His results steadily maintained in the top 10. Luo Fei and Zhang Shan were indeed two dark horses that came out of nowhere. One was vulgar, and the other flamboyant. But all of this was just a facade. They both had relatively consistent performances in their battles. In crucial times, excitement could come in two forms. One was crazy and mindless. The other was a flame that combined the extreme physical anxiety with the mind's calmness. The latter was the best battle condition. Otto's was proven to be the former. He could never be an elite. Everybody could see this problem, but nobody said a thing about it. After their training, Otto's went drinking alone to drown his sorrows. It was actually prohibited during training, but he couldn't be bothered. How uninteresting to drink alone. Here, I'll accompany you, said Taros as he walked in. Over the past few days, all his friends had been indifferent to him, as if he was the only one at fault. All except Taros. Forget it. You'll be punished if we are discovered. I'll drink alone. What are you saying? If I can't even share that burden, I'm not a friend, Taros chuckled, taking over the bottle. Otto's felt warm inside. Truth be told, he was most strongly against Taros being part of the team at first. He thought Taros to be a scheming person, but knowing a person for a long time did not mean knowing his true nature. When he encountered difficulties, his so-called friends had disappeared. All they said was to stay calm. Calm my foot. You should try to understand Achilles. He wants to achieve great things, so there has to be some sacrifice. He's not simply taking his anger out on you, said Taros. Heck, he can do whatever the hell he likes. Why should I be sacrificed? I assisted him with all my heart, and yet he embarrassed me in front of everyone. He's no friend of mine. He can go to hell. Taros, you should be wary. I've been with him for many years, yet he did that to me. You've only been around for a little while, who knows when you'll be sacrificed. Otto's eyes shone begrudgingly. The moon people were now enjoying their glory days. Otto's had worked the hardest to help Achilles in his fight, but now, as the others continued basking in glory, he was being abandoned. Sigh. I chose to follow Achilles because I thought he was a loyal friend. That's also why I gave up running for team leader. Seeing you like that, I'm starting to have second thoughts. That guy is way too cruel. He appears smiley all the time, but he's pretty cold. Even Lai Xin and Lear are better. That slutty Lai Xin does have good looks, but too bad none of the Martians are good people. Lear, on the other hand, is pretty scary. He stands a chance. Otto's bounced back up. Why should others give up on him? He wanted to fight for himself. But that stupid fatso. No need to worry about the small things in our fight to achieve great things. That fatso is nothing with the two of us around. We can hold our own fort since Lear is no longer as strong as he was. That makes sense. He's the most short-handed now. We can try to win some votes for him and let you have the opportunity to advance. He should be more than happy to have that. What about you? Otto said shyly. I'll give you a push first, and you can help me later. We can work hard together. Otto said, full of sincerity. My brother. Such loyalty. Here, have another. Otto's laughed. He felt as if he had been given a new lease on life. Why should he slog for Achilles? There were many others who were capable of becoming team leader. Trying to get rid of him? Not so easy. A few glasses of wine later, Taro's eyes narrowed and gleamed like venomous snakes. Wang Jung will be returning to the team tomorrow. I wonder how he's adjusted, said Zhang Shan. Sigh. How could such shortcomings be revealed in crucial times like that? He definitely won't make leader if the problem isn't resolved. Yuan Yi felt it was a pity too. It was such a great opportunity. They had just seen the silver lining before, but now it was gone. Moreover, the trip held their training back a fair bit. It was difficult for them to catch back up. This was the Moon People's turf. There weren't many opportunities lying around. Yuan Yi, Song Li, and Gang felt down. They were considered marginalized from the whole group. To put it simply, people like them who came from small countries had to build a strong relationship with the future leader, as it would affect their development down the road. They had pinned all their hopes on Wang Jung, but Wang Jung had suddenly revealed such a huge shortcoming. Zhang Shan did not think that far. He had a simple mindset. Fight where there are battles. There was no need to think about anything in the future, everything would turn out for the best. Meng Tian, Lai Xin, Milo, and Zhang Runan shared a dormitory room. As the only 4 girls, they'd all managed to stay around, and with results better than many other boys. Rather formidable and mighty. There was no doubt that Milo was dead loyal to Achilles, so there was no need for Lai Xin to even try. However, she was almost desperate to have Zhang Runan on her side. Even though their styles were different, that didn't stop Lai Xin and Meng Tian from building a good relationship. Given Meng Tian's capabilities, she would do pretty well in the future. Becoming a female general wouldn't be much of a problem. Earth had a weird system. They had to ensure that there were females among their leaders to maintain a certain balance and rationale. The Meng family was well known on Earth, and Meng Tian had ability X. It would all happen naturally. Runan, I admire Wang Zheng very much too. But you've got to know that a team leader has to be all-rounded. Shortcomings like that won't do. Even if his problem is cured, there's no guarantee it wouldn't relapse. You should all join me. We'll make it to Aslan together. Martians mean every single word they say. Lai Xin had a very gracious character indeed. She was eclectic. It was a pity she was knocking on the wrong door. Zhang Runan was very quiet after her training. A huge contrast to her ability and competition item. Not interested. Plus, it's only just begun. A small setback like that won't stop Wang Zheng, Zhang Runan said calmly. Lai Xin had been asking rather fiercely these couple of days, and those who didn't know better could well think that Lai Xin was asking her out. Meng Tian, you're the most cool-headed. Analyze and tell me, isn't it true that we'll only stand a chance if we form an alliance? Unless you want to join Lear. Then I'll keep my mouth shut. But even though I'm a Martian, I'm definitely more reliable than Lear will ever be. Lai Xin had uncourteously made Lear the bad person. Meng Tian was looking at some data and looked up upon hearing that. Seeing how Lai Xin behaved in such a straightforward manner in front of Milo, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. We'll wait for Wang Zheng's return before deciding. We'll support his choice, no matter what. Meng Tian's words showed their stance. Ares College would follow Wang Zheng. Lai Xin nodded. So she would just have to take care of Wang Zheng. If she'd known that earlier, she'd have done something about it back on Mars. It was a surprise that this lad was at such a level and had such persistent followers. It was too bad. She could seduce men, but the same tricks just wouldn't work on women. Because of what happened with Otto's, Milo couldn't say a thing. The moon and Earth's ties were considered cut. She didn't know what went wrong with Otto's either. While he has always been impatient, he had never gone to such extremes. Wang Zheng was back, and training commenced as per usual. While others trained, Wang Zheng did some basic tests. Su Yan was rather pleased with the results. After a few hours of familiarization and tests, Wang Zheng's skill level had hit the mark. Was the short period of rest really that useful? Anyhow, it was indescribable. Wang Zheng had found himself again. There was no need for him to spend energy on the unknown, or on things he didn't understand. With his mental condition unaffected, his moves were all routine. Moreover, space was the most suitable place for him to display his qualities. No resistance. It was a super show. But Wang Zheng was unlike Zhang Shan. He had no intention of showing off everywhere. Still, space battles were very useful. Let's welcome Wang Zheng back. This afternoon, we'll go straight into teams for battles. Su Yan said. Everyone's attention was on Wang Zheng. They thought that the focus would be on Achilles, Lear, and the rest, but right from the very beginning, Wang Zheng had managed to pull up some great antics, be it battling or making mistakes. Wang Zheng, all good. We're all just waiting for you. Zhang Shan cheerfully embraced Wang Zheng. In terms of mock battles, the team led by Achilles had the best results. Achilles also had the best individual score. The trainer had given him the highest score in the whole segment. He was undoubtedly the most capable and calm. Next up was Lear, followed by Lai Xin. The three of them took turns to lead, and each had opportunities to perform. Another 3 days went by, and the moon training came to an end. Achilles came out on top in the run for team leader. He had accumulated 93 points. Coming close was Lear. Lear had a cool temperament, and even though he spoke very little, he achieved many things. Of course, it was partly also because Achilles saw Lai Xin as his main competition. Lear had been defeated on his home ground, Earth, and so everybody had overlooked him. He had a score of 89 points, and even though they were just 4 points apart, it was evident from the training that Lear could only be number 2. Achilles was in control of the situation, and Lear could only pick up what was left behind.